A pleasant good afternoon and welcome to Joe Walton Stadium on the campus of Robert Morris University in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, as the Robert Morris Colonials take on the Kent State Golden Flashes in a Mid-American Conference women's lacrosse matchup. Robert Morris 8-2 on the season, 4-0 atop the Mid-American Conference. Meanwhile, Kent State 3-6 on the year, 2-2 in the MAC. The Colonials come off of a 17-7 victory last Saturday against Youngstown State. Meanwhile, Kent State comes off of a 21-14 loss at home against Central Michigan last Thursday. These two teams met earlier in the season at Kent State, and it was an 18-3 victory for the Colonials in that matchup back on March 3rd. Robert Morris winners of 14 straight games here in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Good to have you along with us on the Colonial Sports Network. Adam Gusky on the call for you, sitting in for Garrow Von Dane for this Mid-American Conference women's lacrosse game on a beautiful Friday afternoon in southwestern Pennsylvania. Temperatures in the mid-60s as we get set for our first draw of the game. Mostly sunny skies, wind a little bit blustery as usual here in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, and that may cause some issues as the game progresses as we go into the afternoon should the wind continue to pick up. This lacrosse game, part of a triple header here in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. The women's softball team will be in action coming up at 3 o'clock, and we'll have the coverage for you on that one as well later on the Colonial Sports Network, that game being broadcast on the ESPN family of networks. Robert Morris, under the direction of Katrina Silva, the head coach of the Kent State Golden Flashes, is Brienne Tierney. Taking the draw for Kent State is Morgan Kubicki. And for the Colonials, it will be Cleo Kerr. And we are nearly set for our first draw of today's match between the Colonials and the Kent State Golden Flashes. And the official sets the ball. She'll back up. Jostling already between a Colonial and a Golden Flash. And we are underway in Moon Township, PA. Draw control scooped up by Robert Morris. A ground ball for RMU as the Colonials in the grays go right to left across your screen here in half number one. With it for the Colonials is Griffin. Now back behind the goal line for Melanie Gandy. Up top, Mackenzie Gandy left it back for Tift. As the Colonials cycle up top, it will go now up high for Hannah Miller. Miller charges, then back behind the cage it'll go for Melanie Gandy. Back up to Sister Mackenzie, who set the Colonial program record for career goals as Mackenzie Gandy weaves through traffic, heads towards the goal. And a foul called. And it will cost the Colonials a possession. It's a turnover for Robert Morris, and Kent State will bring it back out the other way. In goal for Kent State is Taylor Montoro. In the net for Robert Morris, Caitlin Miller. Caitlin Miller, an impressive run starting every game in her Colonial career between the pipes for RMU. 70 starts in a row with today's start for the Colonials. Kent State has it back behind the goal, and then they'll cycle it up high. Between the hashes, then near side, it comes for Kozar. Back up high again. 10 yards out, and then back up top it'll go. Kozar again with it. Kozar down along the goal line. The Colonials set up defensively. Griffin sets the defense for Robert Morris. Ball bounced up high, an opportunity for a ground ball here for Melanie Gandy, and it was scooped up initially by Gandy, but she couldn't grab it cleanly, and it will be Kozar with the scoop up for Kent State. Kozar looks to set the attack, now pulls it back, takes it high right for Jones, and off to the left side it'll go. Jones through traffic, somehow found Sklar, and Sklar puts it in the net for Kent State, and the Golden Flashes take the early lead. Taking another look at this one. Great pass there as the feed went off, to Jackie Wolford, not Sklar. Wolford catching that pass off of the feed from Jones. And Robert Morris falls behind early, 1-0. Kent State again scored just 3 goals against Robert Morris the last time these two teams met. And the Golden Flashes here get the first goal less than 2 minutes in. Set to get back to live action, taking the draw this time for Robert Morris, Jordan Anderson. And the draw won by the Colonials as Anderson has that ball knocked out of her stick. Nice defensive play by Kubicki. But then the ball goes out of bounds, last touched by Kent State. It'll be Colonials' ball as it's Anderson back behind the goal. Now Melanie Gandy up high onto the right side. Rabarge tried to work it in, but it was knocked down by the Golden Flashes, and Kent State in the Blues brings it back left to right. Slow start for Robert Morris, a couple of offensive opportunities, but they were short-lived, and Kent State turned the first one into an offensive possession, turned it into an offensive possession with some time down to our right-hand side, and turned it into a goal, but the Colonials with a midfield takeaway. Nice charge here by Melanie Gandy after the Colonials get the takeaway. Gandy bounces one past the netminder. And a big goal there for Melanie Gandy. Took the long run and was able to bury it past Monturo. And Robert Morris ties it up with 27:03 to play. So that lead for Kent State lasting less than a minute on that goal from Gandy. We'll see if they give an assist there. I think it was Mackenzie Gandy who got the takeaway and pushed it forward to her sister Melanie, but not sure if the assist will count because a lot of that was established by the run of Melanie Gandy. And again, we will see Jordan Anderson step in to take the draw against the Golden Flash near midfield. Taking the draw for Kent State again is Kubicki, who has taken all 3 thus far for Kent State. Illegal draw by Kent State, and the Colonials come out of there with it. Push forward. And a shot put on down low by Thalia Zolas. But the shot saved by Montoro, and back the other way come the Kent State Golden Flashes. Pushed into the midfield, scooping up a bouncing ball, and racing through traffic goes Wolford. And the official near side looks to stop the clock as a card will be assessed to Robert Morris for contact to the head. So heading to the penalty box is Elizabeth Engel for Robert Morris. That contact to the head is again scooping up the ground ball through traffic went Jackie Wolford for Kent State. Wolford, who had the first goal for the Golden Flashes off of the nice feed from Abby Jones. Start back to live action on the whistle. 76 on the play clock, or on the shot clock rather, and just under 26 and a half minutes to go here in half number 1. It's Kozar, collides with teammate Jones, and now settles herself down about 5 yards out from the goal line. Far side it goes for Pekarski. Back behind the net for Kubicki. Up front, a nice defensive play as the ball's knocked down by Madison Gribben. She forces the turnover, scoops up the ground ball herself, and looks to turn defense into offense here for the Colonials. Kerr pressing the issue for Robert Morris as the Colonials get the clear inside of the 30. Down towards the goal line it'll go, then back behind the net. It's Mackenzie Gandy. Gandy curls up front. 2 defenders step in front of her. She'll leave it back for Melanie Gandy. Then back behind the goal again, it's Robert Morris with it. Through traffic, a pass to Kerr, and Kerr tries to bounce it past the goaltender, but a foul is called, and I think Robert Morris is going to have an opportunity for a free position here as it's going to be Kerr from up high. Let's take another look at this one as Kerr gets tripped up on her way to the net. She'll get this free position opportunity straight away at the 11-meter mark. Kerr awaits the start. Kerr straight to the net, then passes it back behind the cage. Gandy up top. Now it's Flynn. Flynn to Mackenzie Gandy. Melanie Gandy back through the crease goes Mackenzie Gandy, and a nice save by Monturo, keeping the ball out of the net and keeping this a tie game with just over 25 minutes to play in half number one. Monturo, freshman from Dublin, Ohio, mines the net for the Kent State Golden Flashes. Armu pushing it up quickly, and the ball eludes Scalar. And the errant pass leads to a turnover for Kent State, and Robert Morris with another opportunity to take it the other way, try to get it clear, and then turn it into some offense. Pass comes near side for Burke. Burke shoves it forward. Now gathering it in Tift. As the Colonials get the clear, it's Tift back behind the net. Pausing along the goal line, then Mackenzie Gandy weaves through traffic, bounces one towards the net. It goes wide, and the Colonials going to scoop up the loose ball. That's Melanie Gandy near the far boundary. Now Gandy back behind the net for Robert Morris. Flynn now with it for RMU, tries to curl up top and pushes it out as the Colonials look to reset offensively. Nice grab there for Tift for Robert Morris. Tift backing down the defender, gets some separation, and bounces it past Monturo for the Colonials' goal. That puts Robert Morris up 2-1. Two straight goals for Robert Morris after Kent State struck first. Great job there by Colleen Tift to get separation from the defender, press the issue, and bounce it past the netminder to put Robert Morris on top 2-1. So 23 minutes, 48 seconds remain here in half number one. Robert Morris on top of Kent State 2-1. After Kent State struck first, the Colonials have really pressed the issue since then. And another draw won by the Colonials' Jordan Anderson. Gandy to Anderson. Falls out of the stick of Miller, but she'll be able to scoop it up and work it back around as the Colonials cycle it up high. Now it's Kelly. Kelly attacks, then pulls it back, gives it back for a teammate. Now high left side it'll go for Robarge. Robarge gives it back for Flynn. Flynn up high. And a nice feed from Flynn to Gandy, and Mackenzie Gandy builds on her Colonials record of career goals with that one. Take a look at that pass. Great pass and a great finish for Mackenzie Gandy to put the Colonials up by 2-3-1, and a timeout is called by Kent State as Robert Morris has corralled the majority of the momentum in this one, and Kent State's coaching staff led by Brienne Tierney needs to have a discussion. We're going to step away with the score: Robert Morris 3 and Kent State 1. It's Robert Morris Women's Lacrosse on the Colonials Sports Network. 3 straight goals from Robert Morris leads to a Kent State timeout. Most recent goal for the Colonials, and a great feed from behind the net from Kelly Flynn. Up front, it went to Mackenzie Gandy. Gandy buries it with 23:03 to play in half number 1. Robert Morris doubles their lead on Kent State 3-1. After Kent State scores first, 3 straight goals for Robert Morris, and the field has been tilted to our left side since Robert Morris got a takeaway on Kent State's second legitimate defensive or offensive opportunity. It's been all Colonials basically since then. Again, Anderson to take the draw for Robert Morris. Kent State sends out a new player in the midfield to try that draw, as it was Megan Kaywood on the legal draw for Kent State, and the Colonials come out of there with it again. Armu down to the goal line. Ball slides out of the stick of the Colonial player down there along the end line before she gets knocked down. That's Kelly Flynn. Flynn, who had the nifty assist a moment ago. Now it's Gandy. Just over a minute to go on the shot clock. Gandy trying to back down a defender. Feeds it off. Penetration by Zolas, and the clock is stopped here. That's going to give Zolas an opportunity for a free position. Let's see what she does with it. Last free position opportunity for Robert Morris. The Colonials didn't go to the net. Instead, they passed it over the cage, back behind the net to Melanie Gandy, and then set the offense from there. Let's see what Zolas does. Zolas straight to the net, and the goal. Free position goal for Thalia Zolas, and Robert Morris scoring 4 in a row to take this 4-1 lead over Kent State. As I said, Robert Morris, it's been all Colonials offensively here since the very early goings when Kent State had established some offense on their first goal. The Colonials answered back, then Kent State brought it the other way, and their offensive possession was shut down by a takeaway by a Colonial defender, Madison Griffin, and since then it's been all Robert Morris going right to left as the Colonials send out someone new on the draw. Megan Kaywood stays in for Kent State. And that draw popped up high. Kathleen Kelly was on the draw for Robert Morris. Kent State ends up winning it. Scooping up the ground ball is Pikarski. As Kent State retreats and looks to set the offense, heading left to right across your screen here in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Kelly knocks down a Colonial, or rather knocks down a Golden Flash, but the ball will stay with Gellin for Kent State. RMU had knocked the ball down to the field and scooped up a ground ball, but the official on the far sideline says a foul by RMU, and it gives the ball back to Kent State as Dean has it now for the Golden Flashes. High pass gathered in by Russell. Russell weaves through traffic. Back behind the goal to go for Wolford. Wolford with the lone Kent State goal today. Tries to curl her way up towards the goal line, but then gets pushed back, and a foul by Robert Morris. And allow Wolford to get some space from defenders and reset her attack as we're down to 35 to go on the shot clock, just over 21 minutes to go as the ball goes out front for Sklar, knocked down by Colonial, and a nice defensive play by the team in gray. They come out of there with the ground ball. Scooping it up was Burke, and here come the Colonials quickly looking for the clear and then looking to turn it into another goal opportunity for Robert Morris as Shea McCardle weaves through traffic, gets the clear all by herself, and then passes it off near side for Rabarge. Rabarge back behind the net for Flynn. Flynn settles. Now up front, Gandy. Sharp angle shot. It goes wide, but Flynn, the last one back for Robert Morris. And the Colonials able to maintain the possession with 50 seconds to go on the shot clock. Now it's Melanie Gandy. Settles, then feeds it off. Worked back again. back to the net, and then a quick turnaround by Hannah Miller. And Hannah Miller doing a nice job inside there offensively. You'll see she worked her way in, passed it out, got it back, turned and snapped it into the back of the net. And the Colonials have scored 5 in a row to take a 5-1 lead on Kent State. So the Colonials certainly distributing the ball around, as 5 different Colonials have scored goals thus far today. And Robert Morris has scored all 5 of their goals in a 7-minute span. We've already talked about the nifty passing from Robert Morris today. Taking a look at coming into today, Robert Morris has certainly done a nice job of distributing the ball. As coming into today, 67 of the 126 goals this year have been assisted for the Colonials. And that one will be one of them. And the assist given to Kathleen Kelly on that goal by Flynn, and Robert Morris again on the attack after they were able to corral it just after the draw. And again, a nice pass. Zolas inside Gandy, and Melanie Gandy puts it into the back of the net to extend the Colonials' advantage. Colonials just distributing the ball so very well there. As Melanie Gandy got that feed from Thalia Zolas, and Melanie Gandy, her second goal of the game, puts Robert Morris on top by a score of 6-1 with 19 minutes and 50 seconds to play in half number 1. Again, it's Anderson taking the draw for Robert Morris, a short-lived experiment with Kathleen Kelly in there, at least in the early goings of this game. Taking the draw for Kent State again is Megan Kaywood as the ball goes sky high. Finally scooped a nice job on the ground ball there for the Colonials attack calling Tift. Tift all the way back behind the goal, works it off. Now it's Flynn. Flynn pauses along the goal line, then back behind her will go for Melanie Gandy. Out on the high left side for Mackenzie Gandy. Cross field for Jordan Anderson. Anderson charging down towards the goal line, then back behind it goes again for Melanie Gandy. Cutting through traffic, Mackenzie Gandy couldn't pull the trigger. And it's going to be Colonial's ball here. And it's going to be Mackenzie Gandy with a free position opportunity from straight away at the top of the arch from 11 yards out. If you're Montoro, the netminder, this is not what you want to face. And Mackenzie Gandy just puts it over the left shoulder of Montoro for the 7th straight goal for Robert Morris, the 2nd for Mackenzie Gandy. So both Gandy sisters with a couple of goals thus far today. Colonials scoring their 7 goals in less than 8 minutes thus far. As Mackenzie Gandy, who talked about it earlier, set the program record for goals in a career. She passed Ashley Levering, class of 09, for first place in the all-time scoring list with 180 career points. She also is the all-time leading goal scorer. And she continues to build on that one. Melanie Gandy, parenthetically, just 9 assists away from breaking the Colonials' record for assists in a career. The Colonials push the ball forward after winning yet another draw. It's Flynn with it for Robert Morris. Flynn to the goal line, then up top. Ball knocked down, bounced around, and will Kent State scoop up the ground ball? They will. Nice defensive effort there by Dean. Dean looking to turn some defense into offense for Kent State as the field has been tilted significantly to our left-hand side since the early goings when Kent State scored the first goal of the game. Kent State has only had 2 real attack opportunities since then, and both of them ended in good defensive plays by the Colonials defenders inside near the crease. Curling around back behind the net is Sklar. Back out to the high left side, Pilar Lewis. Now to Piekarski. Off it goes to Bailey. Bailey, a little give and go, gets it back. And she charged towards the net. Decided to turn it back towards the net and recycle the offense for Kent State. Ground ball scooped up by Kozar, trying to keep it away from a Colonial defender there. Kozar, cross field. Little weave by Sklar, but couldn't do much with it. Puts it back behind the net. Now it's Kozar again. Kozar charging towards the cage. The ball down along the ground and rolls its way past Caitlin Miller. A little dribbler there, and Miller didn't see it roll through her legs. And Kent State answers back after the Colonials ripped off 7 straight. So 17 minutes, 34 seconds to play here in half number 1. Robert Morris trailing, or rather Robert Morris leading 7-2. Colonials trailed early 1-0, but then 7 straight Robert Morris goals. Until finally Kent State answers back as Megan Kozar rolled one through the legs of Caitlin Miller. So Kent State turned a takeaway into some offense. Robert Morris has done that multiple times today. Let's see if this can give Kent State any momentum. As the draw is won forward by Kent State. Piekarski with it for the Golden Flashes. Back behind the net for Wolford. Wolford tries to take it up high, but it's cleanly taken away by Thalia Zolas. Pushing it forward is Kerr. Kerr with the clear for Robert Morris. Pressing the issue straight towards the net. Rifles it off. And Cleo Kerr goes the distance after getting the feed after the takeaway from Thalia Zolas, and Robert Morris scores their 8th goal of the game to reclaim a 6-goal lead, 8-2. The big hustle there by RMU. Kerr, her first goal of the game for the Colonials. Nice job there by the Colonials to answer back after watching Kent State score their 2nd goal of the game. A big defensive play by Thalia Zolas, and one pass off to Kerr, and Kerr with the speed turns it into a Colonials goal. Ball set, and a false start by Kent State. And it will be Colonials' ball as Anderson will push it forward for RMU. Kerr feeds it off. Now a sharp angle shot by Bailey Christensen. Extends the Colonials' lead to 7, 9-2. Passing just so crisp by Robert Morris there as Christensen got that feed and was able to turn quickly and put it into the net. And passing has been clear to be a big key to the Colonials' success this season, as we talked about already. Coming into today, 67 of 126 goals have been assisted, so over 50%. .45 to play here in half number 1. Robert Morris on top 9-2. Colonials scored 7 straight before Kent State answered back finally. Kelly Flynn's going to get the assist on that goal from Christensen. As the officials blow the whistle, ask for a fresh shot clock for Robert Morris. This will give them 90 full seconds to work on the offensive end with the ball. RMU already up 9-2 here. As it's worked over for Hannah Miller. Miller trying to back down a defender, draws two defenders, now pulls it back out. RMU with plenty of time to work with here as it's Kelly. Kelly charges to the 11-foot arc, or 11-meter arc. And the pass, or the shot comes off of the pipe, comes near boundary. Robert Morris not able to get there, though, and it will be a turnover for Kent State. And it leads to, for Robert Morris rather, leads to a Kent State possession, charging quickly. And a nice individual effort there for Jackie Wolford. She took the pass and galloped towards the net and put it behind Caitlin Miller for the third goal of the game for the Kent State Golden Flashes. And really a remarkable effort by Wolford there to be able to maintain the possession between two Colonials defenders. Second goal of the game for Wolford. She scored first for Kent State. .15 minutes, 43 seconds to go here in half number one. Robert Morris up by a half a dozen. 7-goal run by the Colonials, then a brief 2-goal run by Robert Morris between Kent State goals, as Kent State scored first and then fell behind 7-1 before answering back. Then the Colonials were up at 9-2 before Kent State scored their most recent goal to make it 9-3. RMU wins the draw, and here come the Colonials. Ball bounced around, and who will scoop it up? Ground ball pulled up by RMU's Cottervas. Cottervas now to Christensen. Up top it'll go. It's the Zolas setting the offense for Robert Morris. Feed off to Gianna Anthony, and she pulls the trigger, but the save made by Taylor Montoro, and it will be Kent State ball here. Golden Flash's second goal of the game started with defense, led to offense. Let's see what Kent State can do here with this possession as they look for the clear first and get it, as they take it inside of the 30-yard mark. Kent State settling over on that far side. It's Kortovich. And another takeaway by Robert Morris, but they have been so strong in the crease, taking balls away from Kent State. And that time it was Colgrove who came out of there with it for Robert Morris. The Golden Flashes tried to take it back, but Kelsey Nelson scooped up another ground ball for Robert Morris. The Colonials settled it down defensively and turned it into a clear the other way. And here come the Colonials setting up the offensive attack again. Up high it goes for Bell. Bell lost it for a moment, but will scoop it up with just under 14 minutes to play here in half number one. The Colonials up 9-3. Back behind the cage. And a penalty called as a new netminder is in there for Kent State. Now in the goal is Madison Flanagan. For Kent State, the sophomore from Peterborough, Ontario, is the goaltender for Kent State now after Taylor Montoro got the start. Free position opportunity here for Melanie Gandy. Let's see what she does with it. 2 goals already today for Melanie Gandy. This one the save made by Madison Flanagan. Lead at 6 for Robert Morris with 13 and a half minutes to play here in half number one. Foul called against Robert Morris, and the Colonials have to trail off defensively. Sharp pass somehow finds its way to Wolford. Wolford looked to charge towards the net, now pulls it back out as the Colonials were able to get there defensively. Cleo Kerr, the first one to settle back in for RMU. Wolford has it for the Golden Flashes. Now onto the high right side for Kozar. Kozar slides past the Colonials defender, but a second defender gets there, and it's Kerr with the collision. And I think Kerr's going to have to be pulled out of there, and Kent State will be able to reset the offense, but not a free position opportunity here for Kozar as the collision happens outside of that 11-meter arc. Near side it will come. With it is Jones. Jones pausing as there's now 40 seconds to go on the shot clock, as you heard the teams down below us call that out. And a pass across the field intended for Kortovich, out of bounds, and it'll be Colonials' ball. RMU gets the clear, pushed forward by Emily Kim. Kim down behind the goal. As the Colonials continue to substitute liberally, it's Anderson back behind the net for RMU. Anderson pushes it up high, then back behind the net again. It's Melanie Gandy. Gandy up front. Nice assist by Melanie Gandy as her pass finds the stick of Isabel Rabarge. And the Colonials extend their lead to 10-3 with 13:04 to play here in half number one. What a great pass and a good finish there, as towing that crease was Rabarge. He pulled the trigger cleanly behind Madison Flanagan. 12:09 to play here in half number one. Robert Morris into double digits scoring on top of Kent State, 10-3. Again, the last time these two teams played, it was an 18-3 victory for Robert Morris back on March 3rd in Kent, Ohio. Kent State already scoring 3 goals today. That's the good news for the Golden Flashes. The bad news is the Colonials have scored 10 goals, and we're not even at halftime yet. So well more than half of the offensive output that the Colonials had in game one between these two clubs. It's Melanie Gandy after the Colonials win yet another draw. Back behind the net is a Colonial. I think it was Emily Kim. It is Kim with the ball along the goal line near side. RMU up high, it's Zolas. Zolas charging, slides past the defender, pauses along the crease there. She tried to settle her feet. She was pushed down, and I think this is going to give Zolas an opportunity for a free position here as she settled there. Got that shove from behind by the defender, Zablo. And it will be Zolas with the free position off to the right-hand side on that 11-meter arc. Straight to the net goes Zolas. Up high. I think a cross-check against Kent State is going to give Zolas another opportunity in the free position. Looked like there was a clean stick check at first, but then a second defender came in with the check across the body. Zolas, straight charge this time over the left shoulder of Flanagan, and that'll extend the lead for RMU up to 8 goals, 11-3 on the free position from Valia Zolas, the grad student from Oakville, Ontario. Looking forward for Robert Morris. Road game a week from tomorrow at Akron before the Colonials return home to host Central Michigan and Detroit Mercy. Final home game of the season will be Saturday, May 8th against Detroit Mercy. The Colonials will travel to Detroit to take on the Titans on April 28th. Final road game of the year, a short trip for Robert Morris at Youngstown State on Saturday, May 1st. Is another draw won by Robert Morris. Here come the Colonials again on the offensive attack. It's Kerr. Kerr trying to find Eckert, sailed over her head, but a Colonial comes from behind and scoops up the ground ball. It's Kim. As RMU will settle down offensively now, Bell. Bell to Tift. High right side, Kerr. Kerr back behind the net. Up front again. And a sharp angle shot and a goal for Alex Eckert. Eckert with a defender right on her was able to pull that trigger and somehow find a way to get that one into the net over the left shoulder, catching the high corner of that goal, and another assist by Melanie Gandy. So again, Eckert with the goal, Melanie Gandy with the assist. 10:48 to play here in half number one. We have seen 15 goals scored already, and not quite 2/3 of half number one has elapsed. Jordan Anderson, for the most part, has been taking the draws for Robert Morris and doing a very good job at doing so, as that one up high and scooped up the ground ball by Kaywood, as she will win the draw for Kent State, and Golden Flashes look to turn that into some offense quickly as Jones charges, takes it back behind the net. Trying to curl on the near side, instead pulls it out for Pilar Lewis. Now with it, it's Nikolai. As Nikolai tried to back down the defender, she's charged with the charge. And two officials here, I think, may have had two different calls. So one official down near the goal line, I think, said it was an offensive, rather a defensive foul, while another official over on the far side near the 15-yard line calls it a defensive foul. And the third official comes in, tells the benches the story. It'll be Colonial's ball here, as RMU will have to take the length of the field. But they have a full shot clock to work with here. And RMU gets the clear, is charging her way in for the Colonials is freshman Gianna Anthony. Now back behind the net, RMU has it. It's Kim. Now off to Kelsey Nelson. Nelson, two defenders in front of her. She'll pull it back out. Nelson inside. Again, it's Kim. Kim retreating and pushes the pass behind the net for Gandy. And as Melanie Gandy feeds it off for Gianna Anthony, Anthony's shot is saved by Madison Flanagan. And Kent State brings it back the other way. 9.5 minutes to play in half number one. Down by 9 are the Kent State Golden Flashes. Robert Morris scoring 3 in a row as the Colonials get another takeaway. This time it's Eckert with it for RMU after the Colonials' defensive play. Eckert to Gandy. Up high it comes for Zolas. Zolas steps around a defender. Clock will stop as a foul is called. And RMU with another free position opportunity here. Minimal contact there, and I'm not sure why Zolas is awarded this particular free position, but the Colonials will take it. With an opportunity for Zolas, who will instead pull it back out as the Colonials will cycle Zolas with a free position goal about 3 minutes ago. Shot by Robert Morris goes across the end line, and Melanie Gandy will reset the offense for RMU with a fresh shot clock to work with. Melanie Gandy slides past the defender, splits two more, and puts it into the net. Robert Morris with a 10-goal lead, 13-3 as the clock will wind now. Let's take another look at this one as Melanie Gandy, boy, just a nice job to get some separation from that first defender and then slide in between the next two. Really a nice individual effort there by Melanie Gandy, because she started that one bringing it in from across the end line after the Colonials had a shot that went awry. So the clock will run here as Robert Morris has claimed a 10-goal lead. And now that Robert Morris has claimed this 10-goal lead, providing they maintain a lead of at least 10, the clock will continue to run through the remainder of this first half and through the second. Now, if Kent State cuts the lead to 9 or less, the regular timekeeping will resume. And another draw won by Robert Morris. It's Anderson with the win. And as Anderson looks to charge her way through, has the ball knocked out of her stick, but somehow still able to scoop up the ground ball. A little backhand pass, feeding it off to Melanie Gandy as the Colonials set up the offense. It's Christensen now with it for RMU. Pass up high, and the ball knocked down to the turf through the stick of Colgrove. Or check that, that was Colleen Tift who lost it for Robert Morris. And the Colonials will set the offense coming the other way. Just under 7 minutes to play in half number one. Robert Morris up by 10, 13-3. Colonials in the midst of a 4-goal run. Runs of 7, 2, and 4 goals thus far by Robert Morris. Kent State scored first, and the Golden Flashes broke up the runs with their other 2 goals thus far. Colonials defenses look solid today, though a bit aggressive there by Cleo Kerr, and I think that's going to lead to at least a free position, if not Kerr heading to the penalty box, and that will be the call here. Kerr at first thought it was just a traditional foul. Instead, it will be Kerr heading to the penalty box, so the Colonials going to be a player down here. When the whistle blows, we return to the running clock as it's Pilar Lewis to set the offense for Kent State. The officials confer after they marked down when the card was called, and one official asking for the play or shot clock rather to be reset. And we're back to live action with 6:36 to play. Robert Morris up 10. Golden Flashes with it. It's Jones. Jones through traffic. Save made by Caitlin Miller. Ground ball still bouncing around and scooped up finally by Robert Morris. Madison Burke with the ground ball, but a big save there by Miller leads to another offensive possession for Robert Morris as the clock will continue to run here in the latter stages of half number one. The Colonials up 10. Pushing it forward, it's McCardle. Shea McCardle for the Colonials brings it near numbers. A lot of discussion here, and if you're a Kent State coach or fan, you've got to be frustrated with the fact that that much time comes off of the clock while the clock is running here. And Robert Morris with the possession looking to set the offense. Kenzie Gandy trotting her way up high, 20 yards out from the goal. Now charges to 10 and then feeds it off far side. Back behind the net, it's Melanie Gandy. Melanie Gandy off to Bailey Christensen. Now again, Mackenzie Gandy with it. Inside it'll go, and a nice feed from Mackenzie Gandy, feeding it off for Hannah Miller, and Hannah Miller with the goal for Robert Morris, her second of the game. They give the assist to Mackenzie Gandy. About 5 minutes and 15 seconds to go here. The Colonials have extended their lead to 11 on that goal by Hannah Miller. Colonials in the midst of a 5-goal run after Kent State cut the Colonials lead down to 9-3. It's been all Robert Morris since then. Colonial goals by Rabarge, Zolas, Eckert, Melanie Gandy, and most recently, Hannah Miller. 4:20 to play here in half number one. Robert Morris up by 11, 14-3. Ball finally going to be settled in there as the official retreats, and back to live action we go as the draw was pushed forward and ultimately won initially by the Colonials. Thalia Zolas, then a nice defensive play by Kent State. Knocks the ball loose, a ground ball by the Golden Flash, and they look to bring it back the other way. Lily Miller across midfield. Two Colonials defenders stop her progress, but they're forced to retreat, and Miller with the good clear, and then I think the Colonials guilty of infringing on the shooting space. Now Kent State's going to be guilty of a foul. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but regardless, it's going to be another Kent State offensive end foul that leads to a turnover, but the Colonials give it right back as the pass out to Shea McCardle fell through her stick, and it turns into a possession for Kent State. Just under 3 minutes to play here in half number one. Inside, somehow the ball caroms off the stick of Pilar Lewis and finds its way to the stick of Abby Jones, and as Jones looked to pull the trigger, a whistle blew. And Kent State will have an opportunity for a free position just high to the right-hand side. And it will be Abby Jones, midfielder from Coon Rapids, Minnesota. Again, the officials taking a long time to resume action here. That's got to be frustrating, including for Abby Jones on the free position. As Abby Jones heads towards the net, two Colonial defenders converge on her. Save made by Caitlin Miller. But one of those Colonial defenders commits a foul, and that foul will lead to another free position opportunity here for Abby Jones as the clock continues to wind. Now all the players settled, and Jones instead pulls it back out, and a great anticipation there by a Colonials defender to step in a passing lane, scoop up the ground ball, and here come the Colonials. It's Mackenzie Gandy pushing the issue all the way to the goal line, then pulls it back out. Just under a minute to go here as the shot clock is irrelevant. Pulled out for RMU, Mackenzie Bell. Under 40 seconds to play here in half number one. It's Bell weaving through traffic, and she will push it into the back of the net over the left shoulder of Madison Flanagan. And after Kent State had a couple of opportunities free position-wise, the Colonials take it away, and they turn that defense into offense with the big goal there. As Mackenzie Bell, the freshman from Cantonsville, Maryland, scores that one to extend the Colonials' lead to 15-3. And that'll about do it for half number one. And Robert Morris has to be happy with the way the first half of this game went. We go to the mid-game point with Robert Morris having a 12-goal advantage, 15-3 over the Kent State Golden Flashes. We are going to step away when we return. It'll be near the start of half number two. Again, your halftime score, Robert Morris 15, Kent State 3. You are turned into Robert Morris University Women's Lacrosse here on the Colonial Sports Network. Again, we welcome you to Joe Walton Stadium in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, as the Robert Morris Colonials lead the Kent State Golden Flashes 15-3 here at halftime. Good to have you along with us. Adam Gusky on the call for you on the Colonial Sports Network. Robert Morris entering the game 8-2 overall, 4-0 atop the Mid-American Conference, while Kent State entered today's game 2-2 in the MAC. Now, these two teams met back on March 3rd, and it was an 18-3 victory for Robert Morris. The Colonials already on top 15-3 here at halftime of game number 2. Things aren't going to get any easier for Kent State as we look forward for them. They fell by 7, 21-14 to Central Michigan in their last game a week ago yesterday. They're back in action in 6 days, and they will be back on the road at Central Michigan after facing a very tough Robert Morris team. They'll take on Central Michigan, who beat them by 7 a week ago. So 3 straight rough games for Kent State in Mid-American Conference action, as the draw will be won by the Colonials. And here come the Colonials very quickly after winning that draw. It's Kerr, now Anderson. As Robert Morris in the grays, left to right across your computer screen in half number 2. In the blues with the gold trim, it's Kent State, and they'll head right to left. Kelly Flynn with the ball for RMU. Colonials settle things down as Rupert leaves it back for Tift. Knocked away and then scooped up by Colleen Tift for RMU. Tift now onto the high right-hand side for Mackenzie Bell. Bell back behind the goal line, feeds it off for Flynn again. Shot clock down to 40. Flynn out. Gandy now with it. Melanie Gandy slides past one defender. Shut down by a second. Pass through the crease and knocked down to the turf. Kelly Flynn, and somehow the ball bounces its way into the net, and it will be a Colonials goal. Hope to get another look at this one, because I actually glanced down at my paper for just a second and saw this one by Melanie Gandy off to Flynn. Flynn kind of bounced it towards the net, and somehow the ball had enough English on it to spin its way into the goal and get behind Ella Gravitt. Gravitt, the third goaltender in the game for Kent State. That extends the Colonials' lead to 13 on that goal, as unorthodox as it was by Kelly Flynn. That goal coming around 29 minutes to play here in half number 2, as the clock will continue to roll here. We talked about this already in the first half. The Colonials, as long as they maintain a lead of 10 or more, will continue to keep that clock running. Melanie Gandy will get the assist on that goal by Flynn. And Robert Morris now in the midst of a 7-goal run, their second 7-goal run of the game. Kent State scored first. The Colonials ripped off 7 straight. Kent State answered back. The Colonials scored 2 in a row. Then Kent State scoring their 3rd goal of the game, and since then it's been all Robert Morris, 7 straight. And Robert Morris here going to have an opportunity for a free position on the high left side on that 11-meter arch. Shot clock at 54, game clock just under 27. And again, a Colonials goal, Kelly Flynn on the attack. 3 defenders converged. Big attack there by Flynn, and another RMU goal. So 2 in a row for Flynn. That one on the free position after the unconventional one coming earlier, as she bounced it towards the net, getting knocked down, and on the second bounce, somehow it had the spin to find its way into the cage. Clock winding here. It was stopped momentarily because the officials asked for a stoppage. I think they wanted to talk to the Colonials bench. And now RMU again on the offensive attack. Back behind, it's Flynn. Flynn out onto the high right-hand side. Rupert through traffic, has it knocked down to the field, and ground ball battled for, and it will be Kent State coming out of there with it after the loose ball foul against RMU. Kent State looks to push it the other way. Ella Gravitt, freshman goaltender from Granville, Ohio, pushing it over to that far sideline. Speckman pushing, then retreating. Giving it back inside of her own side of the field, and an errant pass and a ground ball scooped up again by Robert Morris, though the pass off to Shea McCardle went awry after the initial ground ball was scooped up by Gianna Anthony, and another defensive play there by Robert Morris. Melanie Gandy knocking it down to the floor, and finally a ground ball was nearly scooped up by Kelly Flynn, but instead out of bounds it will go. Last touch by the Colonials, it will be Kent State ball. Well, the Colonials really setting up a wall near midfield, not allowing Kent State to push the issue at all the other way across that midfield line. And again, Kent State having a tough time bringing it up the field, though Robert Morris not able to ever cleanly gather up a ground ball. And finally, Kent State able to bring it forward and get the clear in the process. And Speckman over on that far boundary fed it off to a teammate, and the ball was knocked down to the field. And a backhanded opportunity to try to keep it in by Morgan Kozar, and they'll say that Kozar touches it while it's out of bounds. It'll be Colonials ball. So a turnover for Kent State leads to another Colonials possession as Robert Morris is up by 14 here with 12 minutes, or with 24 minutes and 20 seconds to play. RMU setting the offense. It's Kathleen Kelly. Far side, now up top it goes for Mackenzie Bell. Bell off for Tift. Tift back behind the goal line. It's Christensen. Christensen off to Tift. Tift settles. Spins. And somehow pulled the trigger. Got it past the goaltender. However, it came off the far post and bounced all the way to the near sideline. It'll be Kent State ball with a fresh shot clock. Now, Kent State had a tough time bringing the ball upfield the last time, and after they got the clear, it was a Colonials takeaway. Let's see what happens here with this possession for the Kent State Golden Flashes. Grayson Dean couldn't do anything with it far side. Now had to bring it near side for Carly Cook. Cook tried to push it forward, and the ground ball was tipped by Shea McCardle. And back on the defensive end, it was scooped up by Kerr, pushed forward. Now Flynn has it for Robert Morris. Now Christensen. Christensen back behind the net. Melanie Gandy. High on the left. Mackenzie Gandy pulls the trigger. Comes off of the side of the cage, but RMU scooping it up. Now Melanie Gandy curls her way up top and pushes it back to the goal line for Sister Mackenzie. Back near side it comes for Christensen. Fed off along the goal line for Tift. Tift pausing, a defender in front of her. Ball knocked down to the field. And a quick tie-up leads to a penalty against Kent State, a foul rather against Kent State, and it'll be Colonials ball. As Colleen Tift will reset the attack for Robert Morris. 67 on the shot clock here for the Colonials. Tift worked back. Christensen pulls the trigger. And the goal for Robert Morris. Bailey Christensen off of the nice feed. And Robert Morris on top, 18-3 now, as the Colonials have scored 9 straight. So it's 18-3. This was the final score of the first meeting between these two teams back in early March. Robert Morris, after falling behind early 1-0, it has basically been all Robert Morris today. A couple of opportunities for Kent State to break up some scoring runs, but the Colonials scoring 7 in a row, 2 in a row, and now 9 straight goals, straddling the mid-game break. Draw one by Kent State, and here come the Golden Flashes right to left in their road navy blue uniforms. Near side it comes for Pikarski. Down towards the net goes Kent State's Andy Henry. And the save is made by Colonials reserve netminder Jamie Keller. Jamie Keller, the junior, has certainly made her fair share of appearances this season for Robert Morris. We talked about it already. Caitlin Miller has made 70 straight starts for RMU as Mackenzie Gandy pulls the trigger there, caroms off the post, and ground ball still not cleanly scooped up as on that loose ball there, a foul called against Robert Morris as Carly Cook had a clear opportunity to scoop up the ground ball. The foul leads to a Kent State possession, and here come the Golden Flashes. Right to left quickly, they get the clear. A bouncing shot by Abby Jones carries wide. It'll carry across the goal line, and a foul is called also. And will this lead to a free position for Kent State? It will, as Abby Jones will set up the free position just off to the left-hand side of the top of that arch. Again in the goal, Jamie Keller for Robert Morris, after Caitlin Miller made her 70th straight start for RMU. Getting back to the most recent goal for the Colonials, Colleen Tift, credited with the assist. We talked about earlier in the first half, Robert Morris, so many of their goals this season coming with assists, is 2 times the ball hits off of the post and doesn't lead to a goal for Kent State, and somehow a ground ball scooped up by RMU as Gianna Anthony scooped it up, and the Colonials bring it the other way, get the clear. Charging quickly comes Colleen Tift. Tift, bouncing shot, gets behind the goaltender, and Robert Morris extends their lead to 19-3. Tift went 5-hole there, bouncing it between the legs of Ella Gravitt. Third goaltender we've seen for Kent State. About 19 minutes to play when that goal was scored for Robert Morris, as they now are on top by 16 goals, 19-3. Next up for Robert Morris, a road game at Akron before returning home to take on Central Michigan on Saturday, April 24th. Robert Morris will wrap up the season with 2 road games against Detroit Mercy and Youngstown State before finishing up their regular season at home against Detroit Mercy. A 3 o'clock start on Saturday, May 8th for that one. After Robert Morris won the draw initially, Kent State scoops up the ground ball. A near takeaway by Mackenzie Gandy, but the possession will stay with Kent State. And a goal scored by Katie Pettin for Kent State. Pettin, a lot of individual effort there leading to the Golden Flashes goal. We'll see her weave her way through traffic there, but that started much further away from the goal after she scooped up the ground ball, getting it away from Mackenzie Gandy. Pettin with the goal there breaks a streak of 10 goals for Robert Morris. Robert Morris scored 6 in a row to finish up the first half, then the first 4 goals of the second half before Kent State finally scores. The last time Kent State scored was with 15 minutes and 43 seconds to play in the first half. Since then, it's been all Robert Morris until Kent State finally scores there with about 17 and a half minutes to go in regulation of this one. Bouncing pass by Kent State, a foul by Robert Morris in the process, and the Golden Flashes set the offense. Over on the far side, it's Abby Jones. Jones, pass into traffic. Kent State was able to get the ball, but not able to get off a clean shot. And the reserve netminder, Jamie Keller, came out of there with it for RMU, and here come the Colonials coming the other way to set the offense. It's Gianna Anthony with it for Robert Morris. Now Christensen with it for RMU. Christensen along the goal line. Little bump by a Golden Flash. Fed back off. It's Mackenzie Gandy. Mackenzie Gandy gets separation from a defender, and instead of ripping one off, fed it off to Christensen down inside. A shot bounced away by Zolas, as that one I think may have carried off the low left pipe before being scooped up by Ella Gravitt, and it's Kent State ball. Now Stackler pushing it forward for Kent State. The ball knocked away from her by a Colonial. And we're going to see a Colonial get a card here. This is the third Colonial heading to the penalty box. Kathleen Kelly picking up the card, and the Colonial's going to play a player down here. Again, today's game part of a triple header in Moon Township. RMU softball, first pitch scheduled for 3 o'clock just down the hill, and we will have the coverage for you on the Colonial Sports Network, as those games will be broadcast on the ESPN family of networks. I'll have the call for you on those games starting right around 3 o'clock this afternoon down at the North Athletic Complex softball field. Lock inside. And a save is made. Excuse me, that was not Jenna Locke. That was Reagan Russell for Kent State. And then a shot pushed off. And Jamie Keller scooped up the ground ball for Robert Morris. And Cleo Kerr racing her way forward, getting the clear for Robert Morris. Kerr into the offensive zone. Back behind the net, it's Mackenzie Gandy. 13 minutes, 50 seconds to play. 13:45 at this point. Back behind the net again, it is Gandy. About a 30-second differential, parenthetically, for our viewers at home between the clock on your screen and the clock on the field. Now, the clock on the field says about 13:40 right now, so that 30-second differential, just keep that in mind as we progress here through this second half, though Robert Morris with a 15-goal lead at this point. I don't think the clock has much of an impact on this game at this point. As a shot ripped off out of bounds, it will go, and it will be Kent State ball on the Colonials' turnover. Kent State looking to set things up, turning some defense into offense. Robert Morris has built a proverbial wall along midfield, and they will do it again there as an errant pass by Kent State defenders leads to a ground ball and a takeaway for RMU, as it was Madison Burke with the scoop up for RMU. Far side it goes for Julia Davies for Robert Morris. Davies back for Tift. Tift, who has a goal here today. Off to Kerr. Kerr rips one off after a nice feed from Cameronese. But the save was made. Now Cameronese going to scoop up the ground ball. At least for the moment she seemed like she was going to. It's going to stay with Robert Morris, though, as two Kent State players were trying to get that ball away from Lauren Cameronese. It'll stay with Robert Morris. Bounced up high. a foul called right near the 30-yard mark. It's carried out. It'll be Colonial's ball and a fresh shot clock for Robert Morris after the loose ball foul against Kent State. Just under 12 minutes to play here. Robert Morris with the ball, looking to set the offense, and a lot of time to do so. Down along the goal line, Christensen. Christensen charges her way in, and she was falling down, tried to put it on the net. Foul called against Kent State, and Christensen will have a free position opportunity. Sharp left-hand angle. Let's see what she'll do here. As Christensen getting some encouragement from the Colonials fans below us. Clock winding, 11:11 to play. As it's worked back. And Christensen back to Mackenzie Gandy, who rips one off. And Mackenzie Gandy adds to her impressive career total. So you give Christensen the assist on the Melanie Gandy, or rather Mackenzie Gandy goal. To answer back on Robert Morris, and the Colonials answer back quickly after that. About 6 minutes later, RMU was able to finally find it into the net after pressuring the issue, and now a 16-goal lead for Robert Morris, 20-4. And as the clock winds towards 10 minutes, 10 seconds to go here in half number 2. Colonials well on their way to their 9th victory of the season, and more importantly, their 5th win in Mid-American Conference play. RMU Lacrosse this season, just 2 losses, both coming on the road. One at Notre Dame, the other one at Cincinnati. Loss at Notre Dame, a 16-2 loss to the Fighting Irish, and the Colonials falling to the Cincinnati Bearcats 16-7 in that non-conference matchup. RMU, after winning the draw, setting up the offense, but doing it with a purpose as there's less than 60 seconds to go on this shot clock. A little shake and bake there by Colonials' Haley Mozej. Now with it, it's Anderson. Anderson up high. It's Miller. Miller to the goal line for RMU. Back behind for Christensen. Christensen trying to back down a defender. Now pulls it back along that goal line. And again outside. It's Miller. Robert Morris thinking it was a shot. They were last back. Instead, they'll say it was an errant pass, will the officials, and it'll be Kent State ball. Golden Flashes looking to turn this Robert Morris turnover into their 5th goal. They're down by 16 right now. 20-4 with just over 8 minutes to play here in regulation. And an errant pass as Kent State went across the field trying to find Carly Cook. Out of bounds it goes, and Robert Morris with the ball. It's Madison Griffin. Griffin feeds it off to Eckert. Eckert, far side, Christensen. Christensen works it back out. So again, RMU sets the offense, and it's worked back. Hannah Miller. Miller goes to the goal line, then pulls it back out with just under a minute to go on the shot clock. Haley Mojej with it for RMU. Pass through the crease, carries to the far side. Ground ball scooped up by Kent State. A Colonials turnover. And here come the Golden Flashes. Stackler all the way down to the goal line, then pulls it back out. Inside it goes. The pass for Pilar Lewis. She can't corral it cleanly, but a foul called against Robert Morris. And will this lead to a free position? It will. Last time we saw Kent State with a free position, twice it hit off of the pipe and then was finally pulled out there by Jamie Keller, the Peters Township native, the junior from just down I-79 from Moon Township, PA. The pass goes awry as Lewis tried to feed that off to a teammate down there along the goal line. Kubicki, out of bounds it went, and it's Kent State ball. Or rather, Robert Moore's ball after the Kent State turnover. And an errant pass by the Colonials on the defensive end leads to a Kent State takeaway and an opportunity here to extend this offensive possession for the Kent State Golden Flashes. As Kubicki has it. It's the first time in a long time we'll see Kent State with an opportunity to cycle the ball a bit. And Kent State will have an opportunity here for free position. From high on the left side, it'll be Stackler, the junior from Springboro, Ohio. Clock winding, 5 minutes, 20 seconds to go here in half number 2. Robert Morris up by 16, but Stackler, instead of going towards the net, fed it off to Sklar. Sklar's shot, save made by Jamie Keller. Ball bounced around. Who will scoop it up? Finally, it will be Kent State with the ground ball, as it's Helling with it. Helling, high pass, but gathered in cleanly by Kaywood. And the Colonials with a takeaway. Taking it away for the Colonials was Madison Griffin, and here come the Colonials on the offensive attack, turning that defense into offense with the good clear far sideline. Charging forward. And then pulled back out was Gianna Anthony. Behind the net, now out front it goes. Cotter Voss did not pull the trigger, instead took it back behind the net herself, and now feeds it off to Thalia Zolas. Pass goes awry for Zolas, but she retreats back into the midfield to scoop it up, and then a foul called against Kent State, allowing Zolas the opportunity to push it back in to the offensive attack zone. Now it's Nelson. Nelson for the Colonials goes goal line, then back behind. Army with the ball, retreating. Now charging forward comes Hayden. And out of bounds it will go. Will be Kent State ball after RMU pushed across the goal line. And Kent State, their goaltender, Ella Gravitt, has it taken away by a Colonial. Up front it'll go. And a nice job there by the Colonials to take it away and turn it immediately into an RMU goal. As I think it was Cotter Voss who took it away, then fed it up front. And the goal is scored by Lily Hayden. So Cotter Voss to Hayden leads to the RMU goal, putting RMU up 21-14. That goal coming with about 3.5 minutes to go. But obviously, again, that one set up by Cotter Voss as the goaltender, Gravitt, was down along that end line trying to set up Kent State. It was just taken away by Cotter Voss, and then she fed it up front to Hayden. Hayden was charging and got some separation from the defenders and buried that one. As we now have 2 minutes and 40 seconds to play in the second half, the Colonials have taken this 17-goal lead on Kent State with 2.5 minutes to go. Back behind the goal, it's Hayden up front, and a goal scored again as the feed this time goes off to Julia Davies, and Davies with the Colonials goal, the freshman from North Brunswick, New Jersey. Take another look at this one. As a nice pass and a nice reception, even more so by Julia Davies, and took the reception and bounced it in to the goal to extend this Colonials lead to 18. So the big goal there by Davies with just under 2 minutes to go, putting Robert Morris up 22-4. 3 straight goals for Robert Morris, and the Colonials have scored 13 of the last 14 goals in this game. So we have 90 seconds to play. And the ground ball scooped up by Jordan Anderson as the Colonials win that draw. Anderson back behind. Now up front, the shot ripped off by Hayden. So Haddon with the assist. After scoring a goal a moment ago, Haddon with a goal and assist in about a 90-second span. Julie Davies with the most recent goal for Robert Morris. And here come the Colonials with an opportunity here with about 45 seconds to go on a free position. Instead, they will pull it back out, and off it goes for Kelly Flynn. At this point, shot clock irrelevant as there's 35 seconds to play in this game. A shot ripped off, and Lily Haddon, her second goal. Nice feed. Anderson to Haddon. Haddon pulls the trigger. About 30 seconds to go. Robert Morris, with a lot of their young replacement players in there, getting it done on the offensive attack, both them and on the defensive end. We've seen a lot of Colonial substitutes, and Robert Morris will win this one by a final score of 23-4. The Colonials scoring in bunches today, 7 in a row, 2 in a row, 10 in a row, and then 4 in a row. With the victory, Robert Morris improving their record now to 9-2 on the season. More importantly, 5-0 in Mid-American Conference play. Meanwhile, Kent State, they fall to 3-7 on the year, 2-3 in the MAC. Next up for Kent State, they will be on the road at Central Michigan on Thursday, April 15th. 4 p.m. is their scheduled draw against the Chippewas. Meanwhile, Robert Morris, their next action will be against Central Michigan as well. That will be on Saturday, April 24th, and that game, that'll be the next home game for Robert Morris. The next game in general for Robert Morris a week from tomorrow, a 2 o'clock draw against the Akron Zips. So the Colonials look to stay perfect in Mid-American Conference play when they take on Akron in their next game. Kent State will look to right the ship. One last time, your final score today, Robert Morris 23, Kent State 4. For our entire crew, we thank you for joining us today here on the Colonial Sports Network. Next up, RMU softball today at 3. You've been tuned in to Robert Morris University Women's Lacrosse right here on the Colonial Sports Network.